It happened on a bright Sunday morning. The sun was up, kids were laughing, and the smell of barbecue filled the air. It was one of those rare, peaceful days on my ranch. That is, until Karen showed up. Not just any Karen. The self-proclaimed HOA safety officer, even though my ranch wasn't even in the HOA. She stormed through my side gate in her bright pink blazer, holding a clipboard like it was a sword. And behind her, 2 police officers, looking unsure about why they were even there. Karen's mouth opened wide, like a bullhorn. This pool is a death trap. I'm shutting it down. Then she pointed, not at me, but at Duke, my golden retriever, who was happily floating on a doggy pool raft with sunglasses on. And you're letting a dog watch children. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen. The cops looked at each other. One of them tried not to laugh. But before anyone could say anything else, Karen did the unthinkable. She blew her whistle, jumped in front of the kids playing near the deep end, and tossed a plastic CPR dummy into the water. Let's see if your mutt can save a life. The kids gasped. I stood frozen. And Duke? He barked once, leapt off his raft, dove straight into the water, and grabbed the dummy by the arm, dragging it gently to the shallow end like a pro. Karen's jaw dropped. The cop, who'd been holding back his chuckles, now he was full-on clapping. Ma'am, he said, smirking. That might be the safest pool I've ever seen. But Karen wasn't done yet. She whipped out her phone. I'm calling code enforcement. I'll have this place shut down. Dog or no dog. And that's when it hit me. If Karen wanted to play legal games, then I'd bring out the big dogs. Starting with getting Duke certified as an official lifeguard. I never imagined my peaceful little ranch pool would cause a war. You see, I'd lived on this land for 15 years. Bought it with my veteran's pension. It wasn't fancy, just a small house, a vegetable patch, and a custom-built pool I designed myself. It was my therapy, my peace. And my golden retriever, Duke, he was part of the deal. He'd been with me since his puppy days during my last tour in Afghanistan. When I had panic attacks, he calmed me. When I couldn't sleep, he stayed up with me. When I couldn't talk to people, he just listened. Naturally, I trained him to swim with me. It helped my recovery. And over time, Duke got good. Really good. He could dive, retrieve, even guide kids to the shallow end. So I taught him how to rescue. Just for fun. Until it wasn't fun anymore. 3 weeks before the big showdown. That's when Karen moved in. The moment her moving truck arrived, everyone in our little off-grid neighborhood started whispering. She's a former HOA president, said Mrs. Keller from next door. Got kicked out of her old place for being too strict. Too strict was an understatement. Karen was obsessed with rules. She printed flyers with HOA rules, even though we didn't have an HOA. She knocked on doors about lawn heights. She snapped pictures of code violations like broken fences and mismatched mailboxes. But the one thing that made her snap? My pool. She started with snide comments. It's too deep for kids. There's no certified lifeguard sign. Do you even have insurance? At first, I ignored her. But then she started taking photos, calling the sheriff's office with complaints, even harassing families who came over for weekend cookouts. She started rumors that someone nearly drowned at my last pool party. That was a lie. Then she threatened to report me to the board. I reminded her there was no board. That only made her madder. One afternoon, I found a warning note taped to my front door. Pool will be inspected for safety. Failure to comply may result in fines and legal action. HOA Safety Committee. Except we didn't have an HOA Safety Committee. She made it up. I called the county. No complaint had been filed. So the next day, I installed cameras. Just in time to catch Karen sneaking around my backyard fence with a measuring tape. That night, I sat Duke down beside me on the porch. You ready, boy? I asked, scratching his ears. He barked once and dropped his favorite red floaty at my feet. It was time. What Karen didn't know was that Duke had already passed 2 online pet safety courses. I'd been prepping him just in case. But now, I was going all in. I signed Duke up for a real canine lifeguard certification through a local emergency rescue academy. It was intense. Weekly swim drills, CPR dummy training, whistle response, even water rescues in moving rivers. Duke aced them all. The instructors were stunned. "He's got better instincts than most human lifeguards," one joked. By the end of the course, Duke received a laminated badge that read, K9 Certified Lifeguard, Rescue Level 1. We even had a vest custom-made. Bright red, white cross on the back, and bold letters, Lifeguard. Do not distract while working. It was adorable. But more importantly, it was legal. The moment that badge came in the mail, I framed it. Then I planned my move. Then came the showdown. The dummy test. The rescue. The phone call threat. But Karen had no idea what was coming next. The next morning, I invited the local news. Yes, you heard right. But just when I thought the war was over, Karen returned. With backup, city inspectors, a news crew, and a petition with fake signatures claiming my pool was a public health hazard. And then she crossed the line. She tried to get my dog banned from the property. Just when I thought we'd won, things got worse. The camera crew pulled into my driveway at exactly 9:02 a.m. They were from the local Channel 7 morning show, the one with the bubbly anchor who always said, "Good morning, sunshine," even during hurricane season. But this time, they weren't covering the weather. They were here for the story of a lifeguard dog and a neighborhood busybody trying to shut him down. The moment the camera light turned red, I clipped Duke's bright red vest on, put his certification badge around his neck, and led him to the pool. The reporter smiled, but her eyes gleamed with curiosity. "So tell us, sir, why did you train your dog to be a lifeguard?" I looked directly into the camera. "Because some people believe rules matter more than community. And my dog? He saves lives. That's more than I can say for certain people waving clipboards." Boom. Instant news gold. Duke posed beside the pool. Kids from the neighborhood came running, cheering him on. The cameraman panned across the smiling families, the crystal clear water, and the sign I'd hung the night before. Pool monitored by certified K9 lifeguard, swim safe. But right as we were wrapping up, we heard tires screech. Karen's minivan. She stormed up, red-faced, hair flying like she'd just been through a tornado. "You called the news? This is defamation. This is harassment. You can't put me on camera without my permission." The reporter stayed calm. "Ma'am, we're on a public sidewalk, and we're covering a story about a certified dog lifeguard." Karen pointed at Duke. "That's not a lifeguard. That's a pet. And this isn't even legal." I stepped forward and held out Duke's certification, laminated and signed by the county's emergency K9 unit. "Then you better tell that to the state of Texas, Karen." Her face? Priceless. But she wasn't done yet. She pulled out a brand new folder, thicker than her last one, and handed it to the news anchor. "I've collected over 40 complaints from neighbors. This pool is dangerous. The dog is unsanitary. He pees in the water." Everyone gasped. I looked down at Duke. He tilted his head in confusion, tail wagging. The reporter flipped through the folder, then looked up. "Half of these are from you." Karen froze. Everyone looked at her. The officer who'd arrived with her looked annoyed. "Is that true?" he asked gently. Karen gulped. More shocking events unfolded, and then the real war began. Karen gulped. "We didn't tell anyone, 'cause we didn't want to get in trouble." I closed my eyes. That had happened months ago. No one had noticed. But Duke had seen the boy slip and jumped in. He brought him to the edge. I thought nothing of it at the time. Now, it had become the final blow. Karen turned pale. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The crowd stared. The camera kept rolling. And that's when Karen said it. The moment that changed everything. If people really cared about rules, they'd ban dogs from neighborhoods entirely. Dead. Silence. Duke whined softly. The kids stepped away from Karen. And then her own petition fluttered from her hands in the breeze. The neighbors turned on her. One by one, they picked up her papers and began ripping them. "This is your problem, not ours. You came here to bully us. We're not signing anything for you, Karen." She screamed. She kicked over my lemonade stand. And she stormed back into her minivan, slamming the door so hard Her sunglasses fell off her face. But she wasn't done. Oh no. Because that night, my cameras caught her sneaking back into my backyard with a bottle of bleach, and she was heading straight for the pool. It was 2:37 a.m. The ranch was quiet. Crickets chirped, the wind whispered through the trees, and Duke was curled up at the foot of my bed, snoring softly. But suddenly, bark. Duke's ears perked up. His body stiffened. Then came the low growl. He darted out the doggy door and sprinted toward the pool. That's when I got the alert on my phone. Motion detected. Backyard camera 3. I opened the feed, and my blood turned cold. There, on the screen, lit by the soft glow of the pool lights, was Karen, wearing all black, hood over her head, and in her hand, a giant bottle of bleach. She crept up to the pool like some kind of cartoon villain, looked both ways, unscrewed the cap, lifted the bottle. But before she could pour, Duke charged. He bounded across the lawn, barking like a SWAT siren. Karen screamed. She slipped on the wet tile, splash, right into the shallow end. The bleach bottle flew into the air, landed on the grass, and rolled away harmlessly. I grabbed my flashlight and bolted outside. By the time I got there, Karen was flailing in the pool, soaked and sputtering. "Your dog tried to kill me," she shrieked, spitting water. Duke was pacing the pool's edge, barking proudly like he just saved the day. Again, I held up my phone. "Smile, Karen. You're on camera." Clunk. That was the sound of her getting caught again. After I fished Karen out of the pool, soaking wet and trembling with rage, I handed her a towel. "You're lucky Duke stopped you," I said. She snarled. "You can't prove anything." I pointed to the blinking red camera light above her head. She looked up, then at me, then down at the bleach bottle on the grass. Her face crumbled. I was just trying to clean it." "At 2 a.m.? I asked. She froze. No answer. That's when the sheriff pulled into my driveway. I'd already called him on the way out. I played him the video. He watched quietly, then turned to Karen. "Ma'am, trespassing and attempted vandalism are serious offenses. You're lucky that dog stopped you, not a gun." Karen's face turned ghost white. But I was just, "Save it," the sheriff said. "You've been warned before. Now you're going downtown." He cuffed her right there on my lawn. Duke sat proudly beside me, tail wagging. The neighbors peeked through their windows, watching Karen get loaded into the patrol car like a soggy raccoon. It should have been over, but it wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to over a dozen emails, letters, and text messages. Not from friends, from Karen's lawyer. Apparently, Karen was filing for a restraining order against me. She claimed I used an animal as a weapon, and that Duke was a trained attack dog masquerading as a lifeguard. She even claimed I had poured bleach into my own pool to frame her. My jaw dropped. This woman had gone from petty to criminal to full-blown delusional. I called my lawyer. Yes, I had to get one by now, and showed him all the footage. He laughed. "Let her try. That dog's got more character than half the courtrooms in Texas." Still, I was exhausted. This wasn't just about a pool anymore. This was about freedom, boundaries, respect. And I was done playing defense. That's when I made the final call. I entered Duke into the National Canine Life-Saving Competition. Yep, it was real. Held every year in Arizona, the event tested dogs in high-level water rescues, emergency responses, and team drills. The grand prize? National recognition. But more importantly, it would make Duke's certification undeniable. I knew Karen would come after us again. So I figured, let's give her a stage big enough for everyone to see who the real hero is. I began training Duke day and night. Fetch drills, dive and pull rescue drills, CPR dummy work. He nailed every single one. But on the eve of the big event, I got another camera alert. Karen was back. And this time, she wasn't alone. She brought animal control, claiming Duke was a danger to public health. And they had papers. They were trying to take him away. She brought animal control, claiming Duke was a danger to public health. And they had papers. They were trying to take him away. flashing red and blue lights, lit up my front porch at 6:12 a.m. A white van with the word County Animal Services painted on the side parked right behind a shiny black SUV. I stepped out in my bathrobe, holding a mug of coffee. Duke was by my side, tail wagging like it was just another morning. But my stomach dropped the moment I saw Karen. She stood between two officers and a woman in a gray uniform, clipboard in one hand, leash in the other. Her face was smug. "That's him," she said, pointing directly at Duke. "That's the animal I reported. The aggressive dog with a history of pool attacks." "Aggressive? Duke?" I nearly dropped my coffee. "What are you talking about?" I demanded. The officer flipped through the papers. "We received multiple complaints and photos of the dog unsupervised in public areas, intimidating children, and potentially being used in unlicensed safety demonstrations." I blinked. "You mean my pool? That's private property." The woman with the clipboard stepped forward. "Sir, do you have evidence that your dog is not a public threat?" I didn't say anything. I walked back into the house, came out with a USB stick, and handed it over. "This has everything. Training logs, video footage, a signed letter from the K9 Lifeguard school, and the full rescue from the pool event. Oh, and a clip of your complainant, Karen, trying to dump bleach into the pool at night." Karen's smug look vanished like smoke. The animal control woman blinked. "Excuse me." "It's all there. Security footage. Eyewitnesses. Everything." She sighed and walked to the van to plug in the footage. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The officers stood silently. Karen started to fidget. Finally, the woman returned, this time smiling. "Sir, I owe you an apology. Your dog isn't under investigation. He's a hero." I grinned. Duke barked once proudly. But Karen wasn't finished. "This isn't over. That dog is a threat. I'll go higher up. I'll call the news." The officer cut her off. "Ma'am, you're trespassing. Again. Leave this property or you'll be charged." She stomped away like a cartoon villain with smoke coming out of her ears. That day, I knew something had to change. No more reacting. No more defense. It was time to take this to the national stage. 2 weeks later, we arrived in Scottsdale, Arizona for the National Canine Life-Saving Championship. The arena was packed. People from all over the country came to watch dogs from fire departments, rescue teams, military bases, and even overseas. There were obstacle courses, deep water rescue drills, and crowd interaction tests. Duke. He was the only civilian dog competing. The odds were stacked against us. Most of these dogs had full-time trainers, special diets, medical teams. Duke had me, a second-hand leash, and a worn-out red vest. But we weren't here to win medals. We were here to make a point. The announcer called our name. Up next, Duke, a golden retriever from Texas, trained by retired veteran Jack Lawson. The crowd clapped politely. I gave Duke one last scratch behind the ears. "This is it, boy. Let's show 'em who you are." The first event? The dive and rescue. A mannequin victim was thrown into a pool with strong jets simulating a riptide. Duke waited, focused. Then I blew the whistle. Splash. He dove like a missile, paddling strong against the current. He reached the dummy, gripped the vest, and slowly but surely dragged it back to the platform. The timer beeped. The judges looked at each other, eyebrows raised. One of them whispered to the announcer. Then came the call. Fastest civilian K9 rescue in event history. The crowd erupted. The next event? CPR dummy alert response. Duke placed his paw on the chest and barked rhythmically, simulating attention response. One judge wiped tears from her eyes. By the third round, people were chanting his name. Duke, Duke, Duke. But then, during the final event, the twist. A random person from the crowd would pretend to drown, and the dog had to locate and rescue them blind. The crowd waited. Then the victim, a lifeguard in street clothes, pretended to struggle, flailing and sinking. The whistle blew. Duke froze. He turned in circles, unsure where the splash had come from. Panic shot through me. "Come on, boy. You got this." He ran one direction, then another. He sniffed the air, then locked eyes on the far end. He dove. I held my breath. Seconds felt like hours. Finally, his head surfaced with the victim's shirt in his mouth, pulling him to the side of the pool. The crowd lost their minds. Even the judges stood to clap. And then, live TV cut to us. Incredible. This golden retriever, trained by a retired veteran, may be redefining what it means to be a hero. Folks, this is Duke, the canine lifeguard making waves across America. The host leaned into her mic. We just got word. Duke has won the People's Choice Award and the Lifeguard Excellence Medal. And not just that, a national certification offer is on the table. The camera zoomed in on me and Duke. I smiled and whispered, "Take that, Karen." That night, I flew home with a medal, a plaque, and a dog more famous than half the politicians in the state. But as I pulled into my driveway, headlights flashed behind me. Karen's minivan. And she stepped out with a clipboard and a man in a suit. "This is my lawyer," she said coldly. "And we're filing to have your property shut down for illegal commercial use." She pointed at my mailbox. "Your address was listed during the broadcast. That makes it a business." I blinked. She wasn't giving up. Not yet. And I had one last move left to play. She pointed at my mailbox. "Your address was listed during the broadcast. That makes it a business." I blinked. She wasn't giving up. Not yet. And I had one last move left to play. The stars were still out when I met with my lawyer at the diner. Coffee steam curled into the air. My hand trembled as I stirred sugar into my cup. Across the table, Mr. Stanley, a calm, silver-haired legal genius who'd been handling rancher cases for 3 decades, leaned forward and said, "She's got nothing." "But she brought a lawyer," I muttered. "She's trying to twist the TV coverage to say I'm running a business out of my backyard." He smirked. "Then maybe it's time we stop fighting her and start outrunning her." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" He slid a brochure across the table. Canine Safety Institute Official Partner Network Program. It hit me like lightning. If Karen thought she could shut down my home by calling it a business, I'd make it a business. A real one. A state-certified K9 water safety training facility. 3 weeks later, a bright blue sign stood proudly at my ranch gate. Duke's Academy for K9 Lifeguards, training hero dogs since 2024. I even added a tagline under it, "Where tails wag and lives get saved." I turned my pool into a registered animal safety training ground, with a shaded classroom area, CPR dummies, new signage, and a full liability policy from the state. Duke became the mascot, wearing a custom lifeguard vest with the Academy logo. The first day we opened, 15 dogs came to train. 3 local news crews showed up. And a famous TikToker filmed a video that got 4.3 million views in 48 hours. Karen? She watched from her porch across the street, mouth hanging open like a broken garage door. But she didn't stay quiet for long. The next week, I got slapped with a thick envelope, hand-delivered. Inside, a formal cease and desist letter. Your training facility is causing traffic, noise, and emotional stress to nearby residents. We demand an immediate shutdown or legal action will be pursued. The sender? Karen, acting as president of the Neighborhood Residential Peace Committee, another title she'd made up. But this time, I was ready. I contacted my zoning board. Turns out, because of recent agricultural program expansions, my ranch qualified for mixed use under rural community revitalization rules. That meant I could run educational programs, host public safety events, and even apply for nonprofit tax status, which I did. And then, I filed a restraining order against Karen. Harassment, trespassing, property tampering, and false reporting. The sheriff recited as she was served on her own front porch. Karen screamed, "He's ruining the neighborhood." "Ma'am," the officer said, "you tried to dump chemicals into his pool, forged a petition, and filed false reports. You're lucky that dog didn't press charges." The next day, we held our first Pollock Safety Expo. Duke stood proudly at the gate as over 100 visitors toured the ranch. Kids got to practice rescue drills with plush dummies. Parents met with certified trainers, and officers from the fire department handed out water safety booklets. A senator's aide even attended. "We're looking into making Duke's model part of a statewide program," she said. By noon, Channel 7 returned. This time, we were the headliner. From neighborhood warzone to national inspiration, how a veteran and his golden retriever turned HOA harassment into hope. They cut to footage of Duke rescuing kids, wagging his tail, and showing off his new metal-shaped ID badge. I walked beside the pool, answering questions, smiling for pictures, until someone tapped my shoulder. Karen. She stood on the sidewalk, not technically on my property, but close enough. Her arms were crossed. Her eyes, red from crying. "You think you've won," she spat. "Karen," I said calmly. "I wasn't trying to win. I was just trying to live." "You embarrassed me," she hissed. "Made me look like a monster. You didn't need help with that." Her lip quivered. "I was just trying to protect the neighborhood." "No. You were trying to control it." She didn't reply. "You know what real safety looks like, Karen?" I said, pointing to the kids playing beside the pool under Duke's watchful eye. "It looks like this." She looked at the ground. And for the first time in months, Karen said nothing. She just turned and walked away. But just when I thought it was over, the sheriff called me the next morning. "You might want to check your cameras again." Confused, I pulled up the footage from the night before. At 3:14 a.m., Karen was back. This time, not to pour bleach, but to cut the power to my pool pump. She had gloves, wire cutters, and a flashlight wrapped in red cellophane. She tripped the breaker, looked around, then reached for the wires. But what she didn't know, I'd installed a silent alarm. And 3 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. The footage cut off as Karen dropped her tools and ran, right into a parked squad car. The sheriff's voice was tired on the phone. "She's being held. Multiple counts this time." I leaned back in my chair. Duke jumped up beside me, head resting on my lap. "Good job, buddy," I whispered. "But I think she's not done yet." Because now, Karen was facing felony charges. But she had one final card to play. A civil lawsuit, claiming emotional trauma from our dog's fame. The courthouse smelled like lemon floor wax and cold ambition. I sat in the front row of the courtroom with Duke curled under my seat, wearing his red Lifeguard on duty vest. His head rested on my boot, calm as ever. Meanwhile, cameras lined the hallway. News vans waited outside. Social media was already blowing up with hashtags like #DukeTheLifeguard and #KarenVsK9. And at the plaintiff's table, Karen, wearing a neck brace. That wasn't there last week. Her lawyer, a stiff, pale man in a three-piece suit, adjusted his tie and loudly announced to the judge, "Your Honor, my client has suffered deep, ongoing emotional trauma due to the media circus orchestrated by the defendant and his animal. She's been humiliated, isolated, and made the subject of national mockery. We are seeking $250,000 in damages." My jaw tightened, not because of the number, but because of the sheer nerve. The same woman who tried to destroy my home, sabotage my dog's career, and poison my pool was now trying to cash in because the truth got out? Nah, not today. Nah, not today. The judge, a stern older woman named Judge Taylor, adjusted her glasses and looked at me. "Mr. Lawson, do you wish to respond?" I stood, calmly, confidently. "Yes, Your Honor. I have video, police reports, community testimony, and news coverage that all show the opposite of what's being claimed. I'd like to call my first witness." The judge nodded. "Proceed." I called Ellie. Yep, the little girl from next door. The one Duke saved a year ago. She walked to the front in her Sunday dress, holding her mom's hand. When asked to speak, she stepped to the microphone and said, "Duke saved my brother. He saw him slip into the pool and brought him out before anybody else noticed." Karen's lawyer objected. Irrelevant. But the judge overruled him. Seems pretty relevant to me. Next, I played the nighttime bleach footage. Karen sneaking in, Duke barking, her falling in. The jury gasped. Then I played the footage of her cutting the power lines just days ago. The judge stared at Karen for a long moment. "You're pressing charges for emotional distress, yet you trespassed on this man's land multiple times and tried to sabotage his home." Karen stammered. I was afraid of retaliation. I thought if I disabled the pool. By cutting electrical wires with gloves at 3 in the morning, the judge asked coldly. Her lawyer went pale. Then came the final blow. I called Animal Control Officer Denise, the same woman who visited my property the day Karen tried to have Duke taken away. She stood straight and clear. Duke passed all evaluations. He was calm, obedient, and the cleanest working dog I've assessed in 5 years. The complaint was unfounded and clearly motivated by personal bias. The judge leaned forward. Ms. Karen, have you ever made a false report against the defendant? Karen gulped. I didn't think it was false at the time. The judge raised an eyebrow. So you sent bleach into his pool thinking that was okay. Karen's face cracked. He ruined my life. Everyone laughs at me now. I was respected before this dog came along. The courtroom went silent. There it is, my lawyer whispered. Her real reason. The verdict? Dismissed. Every claim thrown out. Not only that, the judge ordered Karen to pay all legal fees, complete community service, and attend mandatory conflict resolution therapy. And as she stormed out of the courtroom, paparazzi swarmed. She tripped over a microphone cord, and someone snapped the perfect photo. Karen face down, neck brace sliding off. Headline ready to go viral. Lady who sued a lifeguard dog loses in court. Back home that night, I tossed Duke a treat as we watched the sunset. My phone buzzed with a message from the mayor's office. Hey Jack, we want to honor Duke with a public safety award at the next city event. Let's make it official. I smiled, but I also knew Karen wasn't done, because 1 month later, I got a certified letter in the mail. Karen was running for HOA president in a nearby neighborhood. 3 months had passed since our courtroom victory. Duke had become a full-blown celebrity. He got featured in a national magazine under the headline, "The Dog Who Saved a Community." We'd trained 87 dogs since launching the K9 Lifeguard Academy. Local schools visited our ranch. Fire departments called in for demo sessions. Even a national dog food brand offered Duke a sponsorship deal. Life was good, peaceful, until I opened my mailbox one morning and found a glossy flyer. Vote Karen for HOA president. Protect our neighborhood from dangerous pets, lawless pools, and reckless owners. Her face was on it, grinning like she didn't try to sue a dog into the ground 3 months earlier. Turns out, she'd moved 2 towns over and found a quiet community with an inactive HOA. It was like giving a toddler the keys to a bulldozer. She'd already scheduled her first meeting, and I knew this wasn't about power. This was about revenge. So I made a call to the city records office. Turns out, the HOA clubhouse wasn't fully owned by the HOA. It had gone into tax foreclosure years ago due to unpaid dues. It was now city-owned surplus land and up for auction that week. You know what I did? I bought it. Meeting day arrived. Karen pulled into the parking lot in a floral blouse and matching clipboard, ready to start her speech. She walked toward the clubhouse, but instead of an empty hall, she found a brand new sign hanging above the door. Duke's Life-Saving Academy, Satellite Training Center. Below it, a paw print in bronze. Duke's. Inside, the place had been flipped. Dog training mats, photos of rescues, safety posters, a projector showing Duke's national competition footage on a loop, and, at the head of the room, a framed certificate. Honorary President Duke Lawson. Karen froze in the doorway like she'd seen a ghost. "What is this?" she squeaked. I stepped out from the back room, Duke by my side. "Welcome to our new training center, Karen. I bought the property. It's no longer under HOA control." She sputtered. You can't do that. This is my meeting." "Not anymore. This isn't HOA land. It's private property, owned by me, and leased to the academy." One of her new recruits, a quiet man named Larry, raised a hand. "Wait, so this isn't an HOA anymore?" I nodded. "Nope. Not unless you all want to join a dog training co-op instead." Karen turned redder than a fire hydrant. "You think you're so clever." "No," I said with a smile, "Duke is." The fallout was instant. Karen's name became a meme. The woman who lost to a golden retriever twice. Her HOA run collapsed. Her followers walked away. The mayor even posted a photo shaking Duke's paw at our new clubhouse, captioned, "If only all politicians had this much integrity." Karen disappeared from public view soon after. Rumor was she moved to a gated senior community in Arizona. No pets allowed. As for Duke and me, we kept training, kept helping, kept living. The ranch grew into a safe haven. People brought their dogs from across state lines. Kids sent in thank you cards. And every evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Duke would hop into his favorite raft in the pool, sunglasses on, tail wagging, ready to protect anyone who dared go near the deep end. He didn't need a badge. He didn't need a leash. He just needed purpose. And that's the story of how a petty woman tried to destroy everything, but underestimated a dog who just wanted to save lives.